Hello, music fans. In this video, I'll be giving some band recommendations for 32 different countries. As an English speaker, most of the music that I listen to is from Canada, United States, United Kingdom, Australia, so English-speaking countries. But I do try to listen to some music from other countries as well. And I had this idea for a video and thought it might be an interesting video for anybody who's into this type of music that I'm into, which is mostly progressive metal and progressive rock, but also other types of metal and rock like melodic death metal, metalcore, um, post-hardcore, art rock, math rock, black metal a little bit here and there, technical death metal. So those are the types of genres that you might see, but it's mostly going to be heavily skewed towards progressive metal and progressive rock, as those are my favorite genres. And yeah, let me just walk you through different countries of the world and talk about my favorite band from each and maybe give some runner-ups if I have them. And now some of the bands I'm going to talk about today are bands that I really love and I'm intimately familiar with. And then for some countries, they're a bit of a stretch and I don't know their discographies that well, but they're just kind of the one that I know and am slightly familiar with and like from those countries. Let's start off with North America, where I'm pretty familiar with bands from Canada. That's where I'm from. My first recommendation here will be Protest the Hero. Pretty much my favorite band, the band that got me into progressive metal. Amazing guitar playing, pretty much amazing instrumentalists and vocals all around. Kind of has a bit more punk influence than most progressive metal bands have, so that's kind of cool. They have a bit of that punk, post-hardcore, and metalcore, mathcore influence thrown into their prog metal. Really great band. The runners up here in Canada, I've got Rush, obviously an amazing classic progressive rock band that needs no introduction, and then Devin Townsend, who makes pretty much all sorts of music. I put prog metal here on the slide, but he makes like prog rock music, he makes ambient music, he makes like country rock and every kind of music, really. And he's one of the best singers in the metal and rock genres right now, I think. Next up, we'll go over to the United States. And my band recommendation here, my favorite band from the US is going to be Between the Buried and Me, another progressive metal band. Also kind of on that progressive metal core side. They have that some extreme vocals. Sometimes some of their stuff almost sounds like death metal. It's so extreme and brutal. But they also have a lot of melodic sections, very adventurous music that takes you on a journey. The runners up here are Dream Theater, kind of the band that made prog metal big, and Symphony X, another prog metal band, but they're kind of more on the progressive power metal side. Let's go over to South America. I don't know as much music from South America. So really, I think the only country I'm going to feature here is Brazil, because I know a great band from Brazil called Bad Salad. It's a progressive metal band. If you like bands like Dream Theater, you'll love this band. So check them out. The runner-up here that I have from Brazil is Sepultura, a great groovy thrash / death metal band. Now let's jump over to Europe. This is the one where I have the most countries on my list because Europe has so many countries here. Let's start with the United Kingdom. There's some amazing bands from the UK that I have to give some love to. My favorite one being Haken, kind of almost the new kings of prog metal, taking the crown from Dream Theater. Really looking forward to their new album coming out in 2023 called Fauna. Everything they put out is great. Runner-ups here are Tesseract, another prog metal band, a little bit more on the gent side. And of course, I have to say the Beatles, kind of pioneering all the music that I love. One of the greatest rock bands of all time, if not the greatest. They kind of turned the album into the art form that I enjoy today. Over to Sweden, another country with some great bands. My favorite being Opeth, another progressive metal band who's kind of gone now towards progressive rock. They aren't as metal anymore. They started out like progressive death metal, and then they kind of dropped the death growls, starting with their album Heritage. I like all the eras of Opeth. Their first two albums for me are a little weaker on the production and composition, but I think after that they found their footing. And the runner-ups I have here from Sweden are Pain of Salvation, another amazing prog metal band, and In Flames, In Flames started out as like a melodic death metal band, but has evolved into more of an alternative metal band. And I like both of their sounds. I feel like I'm in the weird minority here, actually kind of preferring the alternative metal version of In Flames over the melodic death metal version, but I like both versions of the band. Most people seem to like the old stuff and hate the new stuff. Let's jump over to Norway. Here, my favorite band from Norway is Leprous, another great progressive metal band. They've gotten a bit softer recently. Still have a little bit of metal in their sound, but they're kind of leaning more towards progressive rock now. And the runner-ups I have here are Isan, a great progressive black metal artist. He was in the band Emperor, a very influential black metal band, but I actually like his solo stuff better. I feel like he's a bit more progressive and adventurous and melodic and does more clean vocals and singing. He still does some black metal shrieks, and he's great. He's great at the black metal shrieks, but he's also a great singer. Another band that does some black metal shrieks, but also some singing and is progressive here is Enslaved. So I recommend them as well. Of course, if I'm talking about Norway, I have to represent some black metal here. So I picked the more progressive ones, as those are the ones that I like. And now over to France. Lalu is a great prog metal band from France. I only just discovered them in 2022 when I heard their most recent album, where they collaborate with some great artists like Jordan Rudess, making a guest appearance there. All their stuff's great though. And then Fractal Universe is another great prog metal band from France, and Nine Sky is a great prog rock band from France. Now let's go over to Finland. Here I don't know as much prog metal or prog rock stuff, so my recommendations are more in other types of metal now for this country. My favorite being Winter Sun. They're kind of melodic death metal, but they're also kind of hard to categorize because they're a little bit power metal, a little bit folk and symphonic, and a little bit black metal sometimes, but I'm going to call them melodic death metal. Yeah, they're really good, well-composed music. And then let's go over to my runner-ups from Finland, which are Whispered, another melodic death metal band. I believe they kind of have more like a Japanese theme to their style, if I recall correctly, which is kind of cool. And then Havu Krunu is a solid black metal band from Finland. Let's go over to Ukraine. My favorite band from Ukraine is Ginger, a progressive metalcore band. Amazing vocals from Tatiana. She has to be one of the best female vocalists in metal, and maybe just one of the best vocalists in metal, period. Really great singing, really great screaming. Really enjoy it. And then the runner-ups in Ukraine are two bands that I only just discovered in 2022, which are White Ward, a great kind of experimental black metal, like kind of progressive black metal band. All their stuff's great. Their most recent album, I think, just made my top 50 of 2022, and I listened to a lot of albums, so that's an accomplishment. And then Carthagin is a progressive rock band. I think I've only listened to their newest album, but I really liked it. I should probably go back and check out more. I don't know if it made my top 50, but I think it made my top 100. Really good prog rock band, really great keyboard playing. The keyboard player in here made my top 5 keyboardists of 2022. Over to Switzerland. Here, my band recommendation is Virtual Symmetry, another band that I just discovered in 2022. Great prog metal band. And then my runner-up, another band I discovered in 2022 is Kasagtha, another kind of prog metal, I guess. I wrote prog metal, but not sure what genre they are. Kind of metalcore as well. I think Kasagtha has female vocals with singing and screaming as well. Great vocals. And then Cellar Darling, a band that I've known for a bit longer, also prog metal, but kind of folky. They have a hurdy-gurdy, also female vocals, all clean singing though, I think. Now let's go over to Germany. My favorite band from Germany is The Ocean, another great progressive metal, kind of more on the post-metal and sludge metal side of prog metal. Really great. I love all their albums. They have one coming this year, I believe, so I'm excited to hear what they do next. And the runner-ups from Germany are Obscura, a technical death metal band, and Protector, a thrash death metal band. I haven't heard everything by Protector. I think I've only heard a couple albums, but I like them. Maybe I'll check out more in the future. Over in the Netherlands, my favorite band there is Arion, an amazing prog rock opera thing that features a lot of guest collaborators. It's Arjen Lucassen is the mastermind behind Arion. He's also the mastermind behind Star One, my runner-ups. Star One, a little bit more metal, does a similar thing with prog metal rock operas and bringing in guests. The Star One songs are all based on movies. And then my other runner-up is Leap Day, a progressive rock band. I don't know as much about them, but what I have heard, I haven't heard everything by them, but what I have heard is solid. Over in Italy, my favorite band there is Banco del Muccio Sorcoso, a great Italian progressive rock band. Really love their album from 2022 and all their stuff from the 70s. Even some of their 80s stuff is good. They do the typical thing where prog rock bands from the 70s go a little bit more pop in the 80s. So there are a few misses there, but they are back on track. They're sounding as great as ever on their newest album. And then the runner-ups that I have from Italy are Karma Moi, another prog rock band, and Flesh God Apocalypse, which is kind of technical death metal, maybe symphonic. Kind of have some operatic vocals going on as well as some harsh vocals. Over to Poland, my favorite band here is Riverside, a great prog rock band. Really like their new album that just dropped in 2023, ID Entity. The runner-ups, I don't know their catalogs as well, but what I have heard is decent. Vodum is a prog metal band, and then I listed Behemoth here. I'm not a huge fan of Behemoth, but I know they're very influential metal band, and they're in the black and death metal, and I can tell they're talented. It's just not really my style, but there's I don't know too much music from Poland, so they kind of rounded out the trio here. In Spain, my recommendation here is a band called Shurike. They're a prog rock band. Their latest album that I think they might only have one album actually. It's an instrumental album, just really good. One of the best instrumental prog rock albums that I've heard. And the runner-ups here are Afterlaughs, which is a prog metal band, and Cheetos Magazine, kind of a wacky prog rock band. In Denmark, my recommendation here is Volbeat, a pretty catchy hard rock band. I think they're getting pretty popular. I think they even toured with Metallica and stuff like that. So they're pretty big, pretty accessible, kind of like Ghost. If you like Ghost, you'll probably like this. They've got a little bit of rockabilly influence, which is kind of unique. I'm not a huge fan of them, but they're pretty cool. And the runner-ups here are Mole, which is a post-black metal band, and Merciful Fate, kind of classic heavy metal band. Over in Iceland, my favorite band here is Sigur Rós, great post-rock band. And the runner-ups that I have here is Agent Fresco, a prog rock band, and then Björk, who makes some very interesting and unique art pop that sometimes it sounds kind of weird and bad to me, but I appreciate the innovation, so I put her on here. And over in Serbia, my favorite projects both involve David Maxim-Micic. My favorite would be his band, Sordid Pink. It's kind of like a prog metal band, but I call it like gent pop. The vocals are very pop, female vocals, but then the guitars are kind of genty, and it's really cool. They used to be called Destiny Potato. I actually like their album when they were called Destiny Potato a little better, but now they're called Sordid Pink. And then David Maxim-Micic also makes solo albums that are great, mostly instrumental prog metal, but he brings in guest vocalists, and they're all really, really great. Over in Moldova, I recommend Infected Rain, a great metalcore band that I just discovered in 2022. Really liked their album in 2022. And then the runner-up here is Fractalize, a prog metal band. In Ireland, I recommend Miracle of Sound. He makes video game music, and it's kind of rock, metal, EDM, jazz. It's got a lot of different styles going on. Very cool. The runner-up here is Bats, a post-hardcore band. And the small country of Andorra, there's a great band from there called Persephone that makes progressive death metal music that I highly recommend. I'm looking forward to seeing them live this year when they tour with Neobliviscaris. It should be a great show. And I really like their album 2022, but I really like all their albums. They're just an amazing band. Over in Hungary, here is a band I don't know as much about, but what I have heard is kind of neat. It's a black metal band called Wilderness. Just a pretty solid black metal band. I don't usually like black metal, so if I like it, it must be good. And over in Portugal, I recommend Moonspell. They kind of make so many different types of metal, so you can see a lot of slashes here. They've got some mostly gothic sounding stuff, kind of dark and depressing doom with some folk influences, but then they also bring some extreme stuff in sometimes, like black and death metal. And they also have some symphonic elements and sometimes some lengthy compositions and progressive. So it's pretty much all those types of metal. And in Greece, another black metal band that I would recommend is Nihilism. I don't know as much about them either, but what I have heard is pretty cool. Let's go over to Africa. I don't know as much music from Africa. I think I only have 2 countries here that I'm going to talk about. My favorite band from Africa is Riverwood from Egypt. A great progressive metal band. They bring in influences from Middle Eastern folk music. Just if you like a band like Orphanland, you'll love Riverwood. And then in Tunisia, there's a funeral doom metal band called Abomination. Very solid. I don't know too much about them, but what I've heard sounds cool. Let's jump over to Asia. Starting with Israel. I mentioned them earlier. My favorite band from Israel is Orphanland. I mentioned them when I was talking about Riverwood from Egypt. Kind of have a similar sound, this progressive Middle Eastern folk metal. A little bit of death metal dooms thrown in there. Also some pretty catchy stuff, like they do some harsh vocals, but they've been doing a lot of clean vocals lately too. Their older stuff is a bit more extreme, and then they got a bit softer as they went on. And the runner-ups from Israel are Soul Enema, great prog metal band. They have some female vocals there, which are pretty cool. And then Project RNL, really quirky prog rock band. If you like stuff like Gentle Giant and really cool musicianship, you'll probably like them. And then in Japan, I recommend Ryo Okamoto from Japan. He's a great prog rock keyboard virtuoso from Spock's Beard. His solo album from 2022 is great, Myth of the Monstrous. But all of his work is pretty solid. And then the runner-ups from Japan are Duran Gray, a great prog metal band, and Tricot, math rock band. In China, I just have the recommendation of this band called O that released their debut album One in 2022. Female-fronted band, very unique sounding. I'm interested to hear what they do next. And then in Taiwan, there's a great math rock band called Elephant Gym. Female vocals. She also plays bass and is one of my favorite bass players of 2022. Made my bass playing video. Really cool stuff if you like math rock. Let's jump to the continent of Australia, where I'll talk about Australia and New Zealand. Starting with Australia, my favorite band there is Caligula's Horse, a great prog metal band. Runner-up would be Nea Bliviscaris, who I'm seeing live this year. Really excited to see them. They're a progressive metal band. They have lots of extreme vocals, but also clean vocals, and they have a violin, which is kind of unique. The drumming in Nea Bliviscaris is just like fast, like double kick almost all the time. It's kind of crazy, intense. I will be interested to see how they pull it off live, how the drummer doesn't get tired. And then, of course, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is the very prolific band who's released 5 albums in 2022, 5 albums in 2017, and then a bunch of albums in between. They're a great psychedelic rock band, but they're also hard to categorize because they do a lot of different genres. They've made a thrash metal album, a dream pop album, prog rock albums, spaghetti western album, but mostly psychedelic rock. And I like most of their stuff. Over in New Zealand, I have to recommend a comedy band that I really love here, which is Flight of the Conchords. Probably the most influential band for me from New Zealand and the one that's entertained me the longest. I recommend the TV show if you haven't seen it, but even just listening to their music is pretty cool. And then the runner-up here is Ulcerate, a great technical death metal band. And lastly, I want to recommend some bands here that don't really belong to any one country. These are multinational bands that I want to recommend here. Sky Harbor has some members that live and are from India and some in the US, a great prog metal band. Transatlantic features members from the US, UK, and Sweden all collaborating. A great prog rock band featuring Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater on drums, Neil Morse, various others. And then Blackfield with Stephen Wilson from the UK and what's his name? Aviv Geffen, I think. I don't have any notes. I hope I said his name correctly. From Israel, a great art rock duo. And those are all my recommendations. I know I don't know bands and love bands from every country in the world. There's a lot of countries that I'm missing. Maybe leave a comment down below if you know of some great bands from other countries that weren't on my list, or even other band suggestions from countries that were on my list. I hope you found some new bands to check out here. And until next time, peace out.